What's up everyone, welcome to Drummer's Perspective. My name is Ben Todd and I'm here to help broaden your scope of what's possible as a drummer. Thanks so much for checking out this video here today. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe, that really does help me out and it lets you know next time I've got a video coming out. Now today I got a special one to bring to you and it's actually my very first in-person interview and I'm lucky enough for it to be with someone who has probably influenced me the most, not only as a drummer but also just as a person in life in general, and that's my dad. If you didn't know, I come from quite a family of drummers where my dad is a drummer, his brother is a drummer, and also their father was a drummer as well. So it's definitely been in the blood for a very long time. Now, I've wanted to do a chat with Dad for quite a while now because he's just seen so much change and development in the professional music industry in his career, which started in the late 70s, early 80s, right up until today, where he's still a very active professional musician on the scene here in Adelaide. His career started touring all around the country with various bands and shows, and then he was really a full-time session musician for quite a number of years, playing literally every single day for various TV sessions, jingles, album recordings, you name it. Even here in little old Adelaide in the 90s, it was very possible to make a full-time career as a session musician. And Dad really went through that. So for me to grow up seeing him do that, it was such an inspiration to me to kind of continue and develop on my path as a drummer. And he's still someone who I just respect and admire so much to this day and have so much to be thankful for him. So yeah, this was a really special interview. So how this came about was Dad was actually booked to record drums and percussion for somebody, and we decided to do it here at my home studio. So I documented the process a little bit for you to check out, and we actually got through 15 songs in a morning and early afternoon, and Dad absolutely smashed it out of the park. It was great to engineer that and see him play through all of that material, and it was, yeah, it's always really special to be able to work with Dad in a musical context like this. So yeah, we did those tracks and then we had some time to chat and have a little interview afterwards, which I had such a great time doing because, as I said, Dad's just seen so much and has so much knowledge and experience in so many different aspects and facets of the music industry and has seen so much change, and yeah, he's a real wealth of knowledge on so many areas. So yeah, we chat about a whole bunch of different things, from his time as a studio drummer to the changes in the industry and changes in, musical approaches. And yeah, it was a really fun time. So I've had many chats with Dad over the years about these kind of topics, but I really wanted to document some of this stuff and share it with you all because I think it's really valuable information that anyone can get something out of. So thank you once again for checking out this video. I really hope you enjoy it. And sit back, relax, and enjoy the chat. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to offer you a free gift, and today that's my 7 ways to attract more work as a drummer PDF guide. If you feel like you're working on all the right stuff, you're seeing improvement in your playing, perhaps you're actually quite established in your local music scene, but still you're not working just as much as you would like to, then this guide is perfect for you. Here I offer you 7 ways to reapproach your development and your progression as a drummer and offer you a fresh perspective on some things you might be able to change in your development to hopefully bring in a little bit more work. The best thing about this guide is that only one of the tactics involves picking up a pair of drumsticks at all. So if you're feeling a little stuck, frustrated, and tired of not being able to be out there working and playing more, then please head to drummersperspective.com/7 ways and grab that free downloadable PDF guide right now. So, Dad,
Ah,
welcome.
thank you.
This is the first in-person interview I've done.
Sure.
So, I'm very happy and honoured that it's you. So, thanks for doing this. So, we just finished doing a recording session for you.
Yeah.
For someone that you used to play with a lot, and now they're doing a new recording project. So, yeah, what was the project?
Okay. A good friend of mine from many years ago. We did some gigs last year, and he said, "Look, I've got a new project that I'd like to get involved in," and so it ended up being 15 tracks.
15 songs in one morning. Well, morning, afternoon. 15 songs.
Yeah. Which is like basically groove based blues kind of tunes, and so I get asked to do this quite often with various things, to sort of play the drums and sort of add a little bit of percussion as well, because when I was working years ago in studios, that's what I did. I basically did drums and percussion together. So I occasionally these projects come along. They're great fun to do,
And
everyone's got home studio situations. So
well, I was going to say, yeah, you've got a little setup of your own at home,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
for this kind of thing where I guess it's going to be professionally mixed and
Yeah.
released and things, and just having a bit more flexibility with mic options and stuff is good. But what is the beautiful kit that you brought today?
This is a bit of a story with this kit. A friend of mine used to work at an furniture auction house in Port Adelaide, and he rang me one day and said, "Hey Steve, I know you like old drums and that, but there's a cupboard here in the auction that's got a drum kit in it, and it looks pretty old. Do you want to come down and have a look at it?" So I hung up and went straight down there. I walked into this warehouse, which was just full of furniture and kitchen cupboards and nothing musical at all. And I said, "Okay, where's this drum kit?" And he directed me over to this metal steel cupboard. I opened the doors, and the first thing I saw was this tom-tom. Not looking like that. It was extremely filthy and dirty. But I noticed straight away it was a Ludwig 60s
Keystone
badge. So I saw that. I closed the doors. I didn't really even look at the rest of it, because I thought, well, if that's there, the rest of it's got to be there. And I bought a ticket I registered for the auction. Anyway, we came along, and there was all these cupboards going, and we got to this lot. No one had opened the doors except me, because I just watched it like a hawk for about 2 hours. And the bidding started at $10. I said $10. Someone said 20. It went 30. It went 40. It went 45. I offered 50. And then the guy went bang, and I got it for $50. So I paid $50. I opened the doors. I took the drum kit out, where the bass drum was very damaged. I had to get another shell for the bass drum. But all of the hardware was there. It was a 12, 16, 22. Filthy, bit rusty, the whole bit. Anyway, got it for $50. Put them in my car, drove off, and left the cupboard there. So they would have made a bit more money the next week when they resold the cupboard again.
That's amazing.
But $50, but it's been totally restored. It took me a long time to source all the parts and all the rest of it, and I have since been able to add a 14-inch floor tom, which I found, and a 13 as well. So I now have like a 12, 13, 14, 16, 22, all Keystone. So yes, it's gorgeous. I love it.
Well, and it sounded amazing today. Obviously, with the recording, just sounds like you would expect a 60s Ludwig to sound. It just was perfect for this kind of thing, and so many things. So, so we've done this session today at home in my studio.
Yeah.
But you've been recording in studios for pretty much your whole career.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how long have you been doing sessions for?
Okay, in the late 70s, I joined a band that toured Australia a lot. It was basically a cover band, but we got on a circuit and we were pretty much up and down the East Coast for about 3 years, 3.5 years or so. And in the early 80s, I decided to leave that world and come back to Adelaide. I came back basically with nothing. I came back, I'd been away for a long time. No one really remembered who I was anymore. So I sort of came back in '83, mid '83, with pretty much no contacts and nothing. And a very, very good friend of mine found out I was back in town, a guy called Laurie Kennedy. And Laurie rang me and said, "What are you doing, Steve?" And I said, "Well, I've really just got back from touring and I really have nothing." And he said, "Well, look, would you like to take on a gig that I'm leaving?" It was Friday, Saturday nights at the Governor Hindmarsh cabaret show. So I said, "That's great, man." So I walked back into town and I got a regular Friday, Saturday night thanks to the wonderful Laurie Kennedy. And that kind of set me up because doing that gig was like, it was dinner music, a dance set, and then back 3 floor shows a night. So I had to get all my reading chops together. You get a rehearsal in the afternoon. And these artists had come in, and back in those days, there were artists coming through all the time. There's about 5, 6 different cabaret rooms operating in Adelaide, and they all had bands, and you all had to read, and you just basically back shows, and that Friday, Saturday night grew into a Sunday. Then that band, because we were a reading band, got booked to do other things. In that time, I got to work with a lot of different artists and a lot of different people and all that. And they said, "Well, can you come and do this recording for me? And then can you come in?" And then that got me into the studios. And really from about late 83 to really mid 90s, I just got embroiled in this thing of, there was so much recording going on. I was in the house band at Rivet Studios for many years, and then I got involved in working in the ABC and other studios as well, and then I got involved with Banksia Productions, which started doing TV and a lot of kids shows. Here's Humphrey, The Music Shop, The Bookworm, and that were producing episodes daily. We do 2 or 3 episodes a day of that, and then it'd be like your jingle sessions, and then all those guys would be working live gigs at night as well. So it was a real purple patch.
That's like the ultimate, it's time in recording. You hear about stories even like from New York and LA of that time, but it happened here in Adelaide as well.
Adelaide had an incredible recording scene and also live scene. And the ABC studios out at Collinswood had the ASO orchestra with rhythm section recording almost on a daily basis, doing either artist albums or music scores or film scores, documentaries. There was so much going on.
So pretty much 40 years you've been in studios of some kind.
Yeah.
So a lot, I'm sure, has changed in that time.
Oh, an enormous amount has changed. Technology, particularly, was the one thing we heard when you go. Everything was analog. Everything was tape. 4, 8, 16, or 24 track. And there'd be splicing tape, cutting tape, and patching things together, and I mean, these days it's just with digitally and with Pro Tools and all that, it's just instant, and you can just all of the outboard stuff, like if you wanted an echo or a reverb, you would have to buy that unit and patch it into these massive racks, and there'd be rooms full of outboard stuff, whereas now it's all on one computer screen, all the virtual, and the technology is probably the biggest thing, and all the advancements in recordings, digital recording and sound was massive, And then you got into sort of drum machines, and everything, click track, time code, quantizing. Acoustic drummers had to play like drum machines, and so you had to, it was all of that thing.
So I guess you've seen like that total arc and like the waves of like playing styles as well.
Sure.
Like when I would imagine when you first started, it was like, you're playing as you, and somewhat, they want that human element, and seeing that digital thing come in where you're trying to sound like a machine, and then like the machine's taking over, and you were saying before, like that was kind of like when a lot of that recording work, like jingle stuff, started to die out when drum machines came in.
Drum machines were a massive influence on the recording jingle scene, TV scene, because finding drummers, obviously playing in time, metronomically to the point of being, like quantizing, like things just had to be absolutely perfect. There was a period of time when music had to be perfect. Music's not perfect. Music has to have a human element. That's what I believe. And the sound of the drums, all the drums, we got into electronic drums and electronic drum pads and drum, electronic kits and all that, where they wanted, the consistent sound all the time. I did a session once for a producer for the ABC, and we did the track, and there was three of us. There was keyboards, bass, and drums, and we were playing in the studio. And this guy from Sydney was over producing it, and we did a take, and he said, "Yeah, that's great, guys. Come in and have a listen." We walked into the thing, and all they were listening to, all they took on the whole track was my kick and snare.
That's like a Steely Dan vibe.
And then that story came out later about the Steely Dan, where was Barry Gibb was recording a Barbra Streisand thing, and Chad Wackerman. They took his hi-hat first, then they took his snare, and they layered everything up, and they were saying, in the eighth bar, man, the snare hit on beat 4 is this many UV whatever meter things down from and this is what this guy was measuring, like all of my kicks and all of my snares, they were all had to be the same.
Hitting the same.
I remember we kind of lost it a little bit with him, because all the other guys are there playing along, and they weren't even being recorded. They were just recording the drums, and I said, well, why don't you just get a drum machine? And he did.
And that was in
and I mean, in an ironic way, I did myself out of a gig, but it was just madness.
But at some point, if that's what they want,
But see, then there was a whole time when that's what they wanted. But then suddenly it's all kind of turned around again, and they want the.
Well, it changed from it went through that arc of like trying to get humans to sound like machines, and now they're trying to get machines to sound like humans.
Absolutely.
Which is they're still trying to do, because it's obviously cheaper.
And they're trying to get electric drums to sound like acoustic drums, and all of that stuff. So it's just different swings and roundabouts. It's trying to reinvent the wheel.
So when you were coming up, like obviously it's a very different time now, like for younger students and players out there who are going through school and wanting to have a career in music. There's obviously not as much session work.
No.
But did you know, like when you were coming through school, that was just a part of something to work towards? Like you knew that was there was going to be work there.
I knew there was a scene there, and my ace up my sleeve a little bit was a little bit like what you're promoting about, being more than just a drummer. My brother and I were sort of teamed together. My brother is a very fine player, kit player, and we kind of like got asked to be in bands together, and he'd play, he would play the drums for the first set, and I'd play the drums for the second set, and it kind of got a bit weird, like sharing that drum part. And in the end, and I started playing like some tambourine and some, a little bit of hand percussion and shakers and things. And I kind of got really interested in percussion, Latin percussion particularly. And if I remember in 1968, this is when I was 15 or 16, the first Santana album was released, and we got invited to a birthday party across the road. This girl lives across the road, and someone put that record on, and Larry and I sat there all night and listened to that thing and went, that's where we're going. And I bought myself a set of congas and bongos and timbales, and I just went down that path. Like I just was obsessed with that African rhythms, Latin American rhythm. I just couldn't get enough of it. And it was very limited because you didn't have internet back then. You just had to source it all from books or film or whatever you could see. So I went right down that path for many years, and my drum kit playing kind of didn't really... I didn't really think too much about it. So Larry and I were in bands together as a drummer and a percussionist. And then when I sort of got a little older and I sort of wanted to sort of make music my career, I thought, well, I'll start playing kit again. So then, and having played percussion, that gave me a different outlook on playing drum kit, So I put the two together. So, and then I sort of went out touring with bands and all the rest of it. And when I came back to Adelaide and got into the studios, I found out that I could actually play the drum part, then play the percussion part. And then I also developed a thing which I still use today where I play half kit, half percussion. So basically split my right side of my body plays drums and my left plays percussion, and I do the two together. And they go, oh, look, it's a circus act. But, but it works. But, I worked on it, and it's sort of like, it's got me beyond just playing drum kit.
I mean, even today you were doing that, did first half of the day with drums and the percussion, and I would imagine even in the studio times it was a very valuable thing to...
Well, I used to play, I worked on this thing, or you could play a rock fill with my right hand and right foot on the kit, and then I would play a conga part together, and that was money. The fact that I could do those two passes at that time, even though it was only a few minutes, it added up.
Of course,
and I would play a shaker instead of playing a ride cymbal. I'd play a shaker more in my left hand, my right hand. I taught myself to play shaker with left or right hand because there's times when you need your right hand, so I played the shaker with left. And a lot of people go, oh, you're weird, man, but teaching yourself to do those sort of things, it got me work. It got me work because I could create more sound than what just a drummer could create.
So, all right, so you're getting into the studio in like the mid 80s, and like after school, and kind of you've done a bit of touring and things. What were some of like the lessons that you learnt in the studio? Like what was some things that really, was there anything in particular that made you go, oh man, like I need to like work on this, or just like playing development stuff? Like what happened then?
The biggest light bulb ever when you record yourself is your feel and your time, and that that's the thing. And this phrase, and I'm about to say, you've heard a million times, less is more, is so, everything is exposed in the studio. I mean, you play 4 bars of a straight groove, and every nuance of that is heard and scrutinized. And if you do it well, it's great. If there's one little element, you crush a note, or if things aren't right, and it's not in time, and it doesn't feel good in your sound, or the way you tune your instrument, all of those things just in a studio situation become so focused. But time and less is more is probably the biggest thing, because you go in the studio, you hear a lot of young cats go in there and they're playing lots of fills and lots of things, and I listen back and they go, it's a mess. So you need to separate all that. You can get the separation right, and then you can add more, and then then it means something. But if you just go in, the studio, the biggest lesson is time, feel, sound.
Well,
And-
sound is a huge one. Yeah.
I mean, your sound, you know, you can be the best drummer in the world, but if you don't know how to tune your drums and you don't know how to, you know, strike a consistent snare or bass drum, or, you know, have a really nice time feel on cymbals and hi-hat, yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
No one's gonna want to use you, you know.
Well, I think that's still so, like, relatable and applicable for anyone.
Yeah.
Like, even from 40 years ago, there are important lessons. They still are just as valid today if you want to be in the studio. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of cats that play live with artists, but don't record with them because they can't do that in the studio. You know, they're great, energetic live players, but in the studio, it's like it's scrutiny. You know.
So how you, because you obviously do both still,
Yeah.
and you did back then. How do you change your playing style and your playing approach if you're doing? Because you do, you know, you play live with some of the people you record with, and you know, are you changing? Like, are you consciously changing how you play?
There's more license in live performance, and you know, all those same elements, time, feel, and sound, all equate to the stage, but you just get a little more flexibility in a live performance. I say that, but I've noticed with live performance more and more in more recent times is that drummers need to play with click tracks live and loops and backing tracks and all that. And that is an element that has come into live performance in the last, say, 10 or 15 years. That, you know, we used to do, you know, an artist would come to town for a weekend, you know, they'd do a Friday, a Saturday and a Sunday night somewhere. And you would get a call to do the rehearsal on the Friday afternoon for 3 hours, and then you'd be into your first show. And what happens now is that when those artists come to town now, they come with backing tracks and loops and click tracks and all the rest of it. I've done some work recently where, you know, the MDs arrive with a book of charts. And, you know, raise your in-ear monitors,
laptop,
man, because and a laptop, because you know, one side you got charts, the other side you got a laptop, and you got to negotiate. You know, you got to read that music and play to that time code. You know, so that's a really a different. That's where live performance is going, and all of the big shows do it now. Even bands that, you know, that you know, like name bands are using those things because the whole show is coordinated to the click. You know, the lighting and the stage moving and dancers coming on. Everything is you know.
That's certainly a huge element that was, I guess, first introduced to musical performance in the studio, right? Like using a click track. That's where it kind of, I guess, would say originated from, and now it's coming into the live element more and more. But I'm sure that was a very valuable thing to have.
I mean, what you've been doing for the last 15 years with Cirque du Soleil, I mean, you couldn't put a show on like that if it wasn't, you know, if it didn't work, run to some sort of a time code or whatever, you know, because, you know, it has to be the same environment all the time.
Yeah. So, what have been some of your most like enjoyable or memorable sessions in the studio?
Oh, I love doing creative work in the studio. I've had the been fortunate enough to work with some really amazing people, like legend type people, and also like some really incredible singer songwriters. I really enjoy creating. You know, if a singer or a songwriter comes and has this bare bones idea, and you get in the studio and you actually are able to create something, and at the end of that process, you have something that you're really proud of. It's not my song, but I really try to be proud of what I do because it's there forever. You know, once that red light comes on and you hit that drum or cymbal. It's there, you know, and I mean, if you don't, you know, if you do it well and you end up with a lovely piece of music at the end of it that you're part of, then that's it. So look, that's a hard question to answer in the sense, but I've worked with some amazing artists and producers, and I've done some great film, TV stuff, live performance, all of that. But I think anything that's done well, I enjoy. So, and it can be something very simple or it can be something quite complicated. But anything done well is a highlight.
Well, you're saying about like the purple patch of your recording stuff, like just being booked by a studio pretty much every day, like saying just come in tomorrow. We don't have anything booked yet, but I'm sure by the morning there'll be a session.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
That's how it was. I mean, we would do a day's recording. We maybe do a jingle in the morning, have a break, and then maybe do 2 in the afternoon. And I go, that's great, guys, and all that. And my kit was in there permanently. And you go, well, okay, what's happening when we see it? And he said, well, look, just come in tomorrow. Come in tomorrow about 10. And sure enough, you get in there tomorrow at 10. And what would happen is that overnight, he would get requests for what they call demos, which is something where you go in and you demo an idea for a client. And then they would consider it, and then if they go yes, then you'd get rehired to go back in and do what they call a final. So the studio that I was working for, whenever they got an inquiry or anything like that, they would demo it straight away, and they would always, sometimes we would do a demo almost as a final because you knew it was going to go final, so you would do it. So we'd just go in and there'd be like 3 or 4 inquiries overnight. So we would just do those 3 things, and then by the afternoon he'd get an answer back to say, oh, that one's gone final. So then we'd be back in the next day to do that one, and then there'd be, in the meantime, other things would have come in, and so it just rolled on. It was just a crazy time,
and like being booked for. Like back in that time, like if you're booked on a TV show, like these days, maybe a composer gets hired to do a TV show and they might outsource, live session musician work here and there. But like back in that time, you were saying before, like, you're hired by a TV show and you're the band for that TV show.
Well, Channel 9, Channel 7 would ring the studio that we worked in. We said, well, we need that rhythm section to come in and do this live show, and it could be anything from a telethon to a variety show, or they might be filming a particular artist's couple of tracks, a new release for an artist, and so they want, and you have to be a reading player. That was the other thing back then. Everything was reading. Everything was charts. Everything was you get a chart, you rehearse. You play it. You'd have to have really good reading chops. That's changed. These days a lot of shows and that are done by the musician learning the music, and by whatever way they wish. They can, either memorize it or they use an iPad or. But these days very little, not all, but more recent times. You get a call to do a show. And they'll send you a set list, and it's on your onus to learn learn those tunes. And however way, if you want to use charts or you want to... But the days of a musical director walking in with a book of charts and saying, here you go, they're not around that much.
Not so much. And obviously, like you said before, like in the studio, like time is money. So, you can't really spend time...
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, back and then, you knew if they would hire a reading player, and they knew, you would, if it was a recording session with charts, they would want it down within 2 takes. You get a run, you do 1 take, let's do 1 more, boom, that's it.
Well, I think that kind of mentality that you developed back then is you still have today, because like most of these tunes we just did one take, like
Yeah.
just played it through, and it's great, you know. And
see-
it's different. It's a different
Yeah.
approach to recording now, where you can go back and edit a million times
Yeah.
or redo a million, and it has its benefits.
Yeah.
But like coming from the time that you came up with, where it was like 1 or 2 takes, that's kind of getting
you
to be a bit of a lost
you got into that
art,
mold,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it's really, you know, music is there's, once you've been doing it long enough, that it turns, you know, like the same things come back, and once you've done that enough, you start to, it becomes like a muscle memory thing, you know, like, you know, if you hear some of those tracks we did today, then they're not difficult tracks to play, but if you apply feel, time, and sound to that, and you can do that, then that track is going to come together fairly quickly. If you're stylistically au fait with what it is, whether it be a blues or a funky thing or a Latin thing, you can fly those things, and there it is. So, you know, that was your job. You know, like you don't have an electrician come in and say, look, I'm just going to try this and this and this and see if it works. No, you want him to come in and go bang and work. If you're a musician, back then, you walk in the door, 2 tracks, please, or 2 takes, please, and that's it. And back in America, it's 1 take.
like a kind of more like a service than
Well,
in the session.
yeah,
In the session,
but again, it's like back then it was like time is money, you know. And I mean, like,
not to say that anything like musicality or musicianship suffered because of that.
No.
That's what makes great session players, is
That's
they
right.
can just turn it on.
Oh
and
man,
do
I mean,
one, but
I've watched, you know, players, you know, like people like Vinny Caliuta, you know, he and you hear the stories, Jeff Caro, Vinny, Steve Gadd. Excuse me, I'll tickle my throat. You know, those guys, they wouldn't even play it down. They would just sit at the drums and read it down in their mind, and they go, yeah, push the button, bang. You know, the amount of stories you hear about Steve Gadd doing the most incredible tracks in 1 take.
yeah,
You know, it's and Vinny, you know.
some name for man.
You know, those guys are in that repetition of playing at that level. You know, and in a smaller way, it was happening for us because we were just doing it so much that, you know, you got into that mold and you could do it. You know?
So, if we're kind of going to summarize all of this stuff, the lessons that you learnt going into the studio 40 years ago, and you've applied through your whole career, what do you think? I mean, we talked about it a little bit before, but to kind of wrap it up, the advice for younger guys out there who want to get into recording.
Yeah.
What was important then that's just as important now?
Is to play everything. My biggest advice was from my drum teacher, gorgeous guy called Reggie Bassett. To my brother and myself, we were like 8 or 9 years old when we went for our first drum lesson. And he said straight up, you know, he said, what do you want to do with this? You want to learn how to play the drums? And he said, what do you want to do? And we both said we want to be musicians. And he said, right. He said, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. And he said, it might not make a lot of sense to you now, but it will later on. And he said, if the phone rings, pick it up and say yes, and then ask them what it is. Because you shouldn't be able to say no. If you want to be a musician, it's like if you want to be an electrician and wire someone's house or a painter or whatever, you don't say, yeah, I'm an electrician, but I don't do this or I don't do that or I don't do that. You say, yeah, I'm an electrician and I can do whatever you want. You say yes. And so that's my biggest piece of advice for anybody is to listen to all music, everything, even things you don't like. Have an understanding or some kind of grasp of it. You can listen to your favorite music, you can play your favorite music and all that. But if you want to be a musician and make a career out of it, I still believe that you need to be able to have a grasp of everything, and that won't hurt you. You know and you know, like if you play percussion, do it because your kit playing will enhance. play with a percussionist, because then you learn how to, you know, if a percussionist is playing along, that doesn't mean you do more drum fills, which happens a lot. You know, a percussionist a conga player might go boom boom dak goong goong goong, and the drummer goes, oh, I can do that, boom goong gak goong goong goong. You don't do that. He's playing that part. You learn to give space and let things breathe. So, yeah, you know, to do everything, learn everything. You know, listen to, you know, German polka music. Listen to military band snare drumming. Listen to everything. Play everything. You know, I mean, the thing that's fascinating me at the moment is I'm really freaking out and listening a lot to like these metal players and their facility and their technical ability is just it's freaking me out. But you know, I'm into it. I mean, I can't do it, but I'm into it because it's, you know,
There's appreciation for
it's
it.
an appreciation of another level of what the instrument can do. You know, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, you certainly instilled all of that stuff in me very early on. So, I mean, this is all. Yeah, everything I've done is completely thanks to you. So
oh man, it's like, well, you listen.
It.
You know, you basically, you know, no one pushed you into this. You know, you asked the questions, you got some answers, and you acted upon them. So, you know, that's all. That's all you can do. You know, you choose. It's all choices, people.
Yeah.
You know, it's all choices and time. You know, and you gotta work hard, and you know you're the epitome of that. You've worked extremely hard and dedicated, and you know, find good teachers, find good people to source information from. And it's easy these days because there's so much stuff online, and you can contact these people, and they can do face to. You know, it's amazing what you can do now. So you know.
Cool.
It's up to you.
Awesome. All right, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, man.
Think so.
Love it.